seconds. It's just so we can sync the audio up later on.
Perfect.
Okay. Zach, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
Good enough. Let me send out the tweet.
Hello, everybody tuned in. We are about to begin. Sorry for the lateness.
Okay, just let me get the script thing ready. All right, welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 45 for April 14th, 2017. Hey, everybody, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden, and a special guest this week, Donna Sarkar. If I'm pronouncing that right, we had a debate. Is it Sarkar or Sakar?
It's Sarkar. You got it right the first time. Yep.
Perfect. So as you probably know, Donna is in charge of the Windows Insider program. And today we're going to be talking about that, some of the challenges involved, how the program is evolved, I should say, and what's going on for 2017. And before we get started, I need to just get this out of the way. Donna has a specific job at Microsoft. And that job is, we should actually list all the jobs she doesn't do, but we could do that with just focusing on Windows 10 Mobile's future and, of course, Surface products. So we won't be asking those questions. Please don't leave me an angry comment about why we didn't. It's simple. It's not her job. So if you ask
Microsoft Dynamics, HoloLens, there's a lot of stuff I do not work on.
Tell us about Azure.
I can talk about LinkedIn.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, LinkedIn. So I just want to get that out of the way, just so there's no controversy there. We're going to just focus on the Windows Insider program, which is her specialty, and I'm sure she's very passionate about it. So let's get to it. So Donna, tell us a little bit about, obviously, the Windows Insider program, if I recall, started off with was supposed to be only 200,000 people initially, but has since grown slightly.
Slightly, my gosh. So what's so funny, and Bill Karagunis tells this story so well, it was at the beginning, Gabe All, Bill Karagunis, and Jeremiah Marble, who all three of you guys all know. And they went to Terry and said, you know what, we want to do this program where we actually want to co-create with this huge community of people out there. Send us feedback. Windows betas, they've been, and I've actually been a deep part of it. It's cool to see many insights like this.
Oh wait, Don, sorry, your voice is dropping off a little bit. I might want to speak a little closer to the microphone.
Switch forward a little then.
Yeah.
I've been a part of Windows beta programs for years, about 12 years worth. So when I first came on board Microsoft, I actually ran the MVP program for the Windows desktop shell.
Oh, nice.
And as part of the engineering team. And it was pretty unprecedented for the engineering team to actually run MVP chats and summits and whatnot. But I love doing it. I think talking to customers has always been my favorite part of the job by far, because we can talk to ourselves and say, yeah, I think this feature is good, or I think this is being received well. But until we hear that from lots and lots of customers, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of customers, we can't actually say that. So that's always been my favorite part of the job. One thing that I used to do, which was my little secret, was whenever I wanted to have a feature pushed, I would just go get a bunch of customer feedback. And, using data early, and it worked every single time, because when I'd come back with specific stories like, Zach and Daniel are trying to do this, and they would really appreciate this feedback, appreciate this feature to be implemented, I was able to actually implement that.
I've heard this before, by the way, that all the teams at Microsoft, everybody has their own team that they work on, and they're all vying for to get that prioritized. And one way you guys do that is through feedback, which I'm sure we'll get into the Feedback Hub stuff. Yeah.
But we've used preliminary versions of these tools forever, right? There used to be the Connect tool, which a lot of you might remember. There used to be Send a Smile, which a lot of you will remember. But Feedback Hub has actually become this life of its own. And I get pings pretty much 3 times a week from other teams at Microsoft saying, hey, we want an insider as well. So my team and I, there's 6 of us, we've actually become life coaches to people who want to engage with their communities all around Microsoft. So every day we get pings from people, and sometimes it makes a lot of sense to kind of fold them into our program, like Server, for example, right? Because Windows Server, we're going to actually help them by helping them with their communications, figuring out their kind of rollout strategy. They're going to use ISOs, not flights, and server builds are like that. But a lot of times it's just like a little bit of life coaching, like, hey, who are the target customers you're trying to reach? Who do you have? How can you communicate with them more effectively? So we consider ourselves to be like these insider life coaches, which is pretty cool. And it's really fun because we get to learn a lot about different kinds of people in the world and figure out like interesting intersections between audiences. So specific audiences that we have, or maybe like the Office team may have, or we have, and maybe the Azure team may have. We have maybe Xbox. So that leads to really good partnerships within these organizations, which has been really amazing. But to answer your question, yeah, I've been working on Windows beta programs for a long time. And when the opportunity to actually work on Insiders came along, I actually got the whole history of, it was supposed to be a closed program with about somewhere between 200 and max 400,000 people. And work closely with to get feedback from. And Terry actually said, let's just open it up and see who wants to join. And they thought, okay, maybe we'll get 400,000 people all up, or maybe 500,000 people all up.
Right.
And within like 2 days, it was well over millions of people. And we've been exponentially rising since. But we're at that point where it doesn't make sense to really count how many people are in the community. It actually makes more sense to figure out who is in the community and who is giving really great feedback and who is giving feedback that is actually making a deep impact to the product all up.
And so I guess that's a really good segue into this question about where you're talking before about feedback and how you used to bring it back to your team and to sort of get things elevated. So what's the process for selecting features for Windows 10? Because you guys seem to have these like sort of milestone releases. And obviously there's this balance you have to do with here's what we want to do and here's what we're trying to do and then what you can actually deliver. And I know it's, you guys have some still room there to work with. Obviously the People Hub thing, the My People feature was, announced early, but then obviously things came down and you weren't able to deliver in time. So how does the feedback work in that sense and to get features? Like what is the process that you guys use to choose those features for a specific release?
So it starts with the business goal of the release, right? It figure out like what is the main thing that we are trying to do in this release. And one thing we've learned from Windows history is trying to do too many things is never going to be a good idea, right? That's when we get like releases that are targeted toward like 6 different audiences with 6 different campaigns, and it all gets a little bit muddled. So let's look at something called the Creators Update, right? We knew we wanted to do something around Creators Update for a long time. And we thought, okay, this is the year to do it because we had some amazing Surface products coming to light. We had a lot of investment in 3D. We had a lot of investment in inking. And we have this fundamental belief that everybody is a creator. So it started with a story, right? If you think back to, all of us at some point were like 5 years old. Some of us still are, but we're all 5 years old and we're handed a blank sheet of paper. And we were not afraid of that blank sheet of paper. We used to write, draw, paint, glue macaroni to it, invent games, declare ourselves president of the world, whatever it was. And we would create something and then we would show someone. And many times someone would criticize it and say, that's not very good, or that makes no sense, or you're not a very good artist. And about 50% of humans stop creating. They become more, followers or editors. They become a lot more cautious about the blank page. They become afraid of a blank page. And we realized that it's time to reignite that because human beings are inherently creative. It's just what we are. The saddest thing for me is when someone tells me, Donna, I'm not creative. And I said, I don't even know what that means because we are by nature creative animals, right? We are very, very, very inquisitive, curious creatures. Every single human that I know speculates about the future. They daydream. They make stuff up. Most of us, we fixate on the right words in a tweet. We think about the right Instagram filters. These are all acts of creativity. And the fact that people believe that to be a creative or a creator, you have to be like, have an easel in a studio somewhere, that makes me really sad because we are all inherently creative people. And what we really wanted this release to be was to reignite that creator in every single person. Whether you're actually, creating a brand new form of art on the Surface Studio, or whether you're introducing the idea of Windows in a giant enterprise in an insider format way. That is a very creative art form, because how do you go convince like 5 levels of upper management at, say, like Delta Airlines, right, to go and introduce Windows Insider builds? You need to think of the story, right? The story is everything. So what is the story you're going to tell? So it starts with an idea, like, okay, the main audience we're going after are creators, and what are the kind of key features we can build for these kinds of people? Now, our customer base is pretty huge, so one thing we have to realize and keep in mind is we can't just rule out giant customer bases. If we focus on creators and we only focus on artists, then we're not thinking about the people who are creators in enterprises, or the people who create, software. So we started thinking about, like, okay, what are some of the key investments that we can be making? And then we think of them as like these pillars. So gaming is a pillar, 3D is a pillar, art is actually a pillar, enterprise through security features is a pillar. So we focused on like a few of these different pillars. And we realized that, as we start to think about what kind of features we want to incorporate here, we actually want to talk to insiders and figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. So that's when community champs, they're actually insiders' best friends, they take to the Feedback Hub and look up what people are trying to do, right? We got a lot of feedback saying it would be awesome if we could ink on photos. A lot. Huge amounts. We're like, that's a really interesting idea, right? I can ink in OneNote, I can ink in Sketchpad, but I can't ink on photos. That's a very interesting idea, because not just for consumers, but for most businesses, right? Like if you're working in an architecture firm, you want to be able to ink. It's just basic. So we're like, there's an interesting idea, right? Because that works for enterprises as well as creatives. So some features like that. Another one is, we really, as humans, want to be able to customize the place we spend the most time in, right? It's like when you live in an apartment, you're not allowed to paint the walls. It makes you crazy. Sure. So many of us are willing to like pay the premium, right? And paint the walls anyway, and then pay the $200 to have it painted back. So a lot of the features that we put in Creators Update came from asks from insiders saying, we want to customize more. Accent colors, choose your accent color, whether it's through hexadecimal, like super nerdy way, or with the dropper, right? Both of those are very much about creating a Windows that's right for you. That another one was the all apps view. A ton of people said, like, I don't want this all apps view. I just want the ones I've chosen tiled. We said, okay, great, we can do that, right? So create the operating system for you. But that's how we started to think about Creators Update. We come up with the idea, we come up with some themes and pillars, we take to Feedback Hub, community champs go back to the teams with ideas and say, here are some top things from insiders. How can we weave this into planning? So once we weave into planning, features emerge, and those features get rolled to insiders. And one thing I don't think people realize is that if something doesn't resonate well with insiders, we aren't going to ship it.
Right.
That's a lot of power. And insiders, I think, forget that.
I guess that's sort of the interesting question, too, about whether or not, like, people always ask, like, about priorities of features. People upvote things and say, why are they doing this? But it's definitely a balance act, right, for you guys, where just because something maybe even has a lot of votes, maybe it doesn't fit into the overall concept that's happening, or maybe because other things have to take priority for that specific release.
And it has to fit in within the business goals of that release, right? And those goals are dictated by like market conditions, what we are hoping to invest in the future. So the overall business goals are set. They're company-wide, because we do a lot of work with our ecosystem to actually support those goals, right? Right now, you're seeing a lot of OEM manufacturers come out with devices with pens. Yep. That's not an accident, right?
Sure.
We've been working with them for 6 months. So if we suddenly stopped doing things with creators and started adding in a bunch of features based on feedback from customers, the OEMs would be like very betrayed. They'd say, wait, we're making all these things with pens because we thought inking was a thing, right? Inking and 3D and Paint 3D and all of these things are a thing. How come you guys aren't investing in that anymore? So these are commitments we make very early on with our partners, customers, and we fulfill the needs of that audience. So it doesn't mean that just because something's in Feedback Hub, we don't address it this release, means we're never going to address it.
Right.
Because many of the inking and paint, inking and photo stuff, like 2 years ago, introduced it.
So
speaking of the Feedback Hub, when building out the creators like that, I'm curious, what was the most popular bit of feedback you guys received for this release? Because I know you've received thousands of bits of feedback every day. There must be something up there that was more popular than everything else.
Well, there's a lot. We get a lot of things that we can't do anything about, right? Like hardware related things.
Right.
Get a lot of like, please send me a free blah. There's a lot of we actually get millions of pieces of feedback. I was just looking at these numbers yesterday. I think I did a snapshot of Feedback Hub, and we have 8 million pieces of feedback, 12.5 million upvotes in just like and a half. It's an obscene number. It's crazy. Right? It's amazing. Love it. Right. But when we think about it that way, there's not like a piece of feedback that rules them all. We've gotten a lot around, I want to be able to customize my machine. I would say that's a general theme that comes up over and over. Right. I want to have more control over customizing my machine. And that's across the board. That's not just like how it looks, but I want to be able to play with the battery throttling, right? I want to be able to play with the power metrics. I want to be able to choose when I update. I want to be able to choose privacy. I want to be able to choose colors. I want to be able to choose app name. And we actually think this version of Windows 10 is the most customizable system there's ever been because of that feedback.
So speaking about themes, and you mentioned about sort of the business environment and this idea of like, coming out with specific releases. So without giving away anything about the next release, is that already planned? In other words, you already have a theme you guys are working on, and that things are starting to coalesce around that idea. And like, how far out are these? Like, do you have like 2018 like rough ideas about things you want to start to focus on? And because it's really interesting, and I imagine hard, because it's in a lot of ways we have Windows 10. It's an operating system. So how do you like go, all right, 2019, we'd like to be able to focus on something like this?
Well, part of it is thinking about the landscape of technology and what that means, looking across the industry. And I don't think people realize how much work it is to predict the future.
Sure.
Because what we think of as very important today, screened devices,
right,
may not be the most important thing in 5 years, right? I'm a futurist. I always think way too much about the future. Like Bill Gates had a great tweet or like Twitter post where he says, we fixate on the next 2 years, but not on the next 20. We need to think, we grossly underestimate what we can get done in 20 years. So I always love to think in terms of like the 20-year mark, right? Because I plan to be in tech in 20 years. That's not even that far.
Right.
But when we think about what the future looks like, we have to start thinking like, we have to make some big bets, right? Satya has been very clear that we want to make big bets on AI, on machines doing things for us that are annoying, right? This is not machines come take my job. This is machines do the things that are annoying that no one likes to do. If you're doing something every single day and it's annoying every single day, there should be some sort of automation that handles it.
Right.
Like just the basic, something really, really basic that I deal with all day is finding time to schedule meetings. Someone will say, hey, Donna, can you meet at this time? Can you meet at that time? Can you meet at this time? I love using Cortana to actually just like handle that, right? But I think AI is going to be more like baked into products in general, right? Products are just going to get smarter. One thing that I don't know if you guys have seen, that's been saving my life is PowerPoint, where I can't design PowerPoints to save my life. I wind up presenting a lot. I present at conferences and events like twice a week at least. And for everything, I need a PowerPoint. And I am so bad at making PowerPoints. It is one of those things that it's really terrible how bad I am. So what I wind up doing is making everything look like a command line, because I'm like, hey, I'm a nerd. Okay, that's what you get. So I make everything look like a command line, and I just hit design on the PowerPoint design page, design suggestions, and it gives me these beautiful designs. And they look like they're made by like a design agency. And I just choose one, and people are like, oh, wow, your PowerPoints are beautiful. I'm like, thank you, whoever, right? PowerPoint AI for doing that for me. So the way we're thinking about tech investments going forward is we know AI is a thing, right? There's a 5,000 person AI team right down the street with really freaking smart people working on AI technology that is going to go across all the Microsoft tech, right? It doesn't matter if it's hardware, software, cloud, not cloud. It's going to go across all of our tech. So we have to kind of prepare ourselves to figure out like what is the best way for us to actually leverage that, right? How can we actually like think about the themes around this milestone and the milestone after to actually leverage the learnings of machines. So another one is, of course, our relationships with our partner teams in 3D, right? 3D is a big deal. For most industries, it is a huge, huge deal. When you look at architecture, medicine, anything kind of where design is a thing, like the design of 3D things is a thing, the power of 3D is just becoming very apparent. I saw it a lot when I worked on HoloLens around manufacturing space, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But it's becoming very, very prevalent across industries at this point. And we know that there's a lot of teaching to be done there because people inherently are not good at creating in 3D. I'm not. I worked on holograms and I'm not good at creating 3D.
Right.
But through tools like Paint 3D and through 3D Viewer and whatnot, these are skill sets that we have to build up within ourselves, right? And within our audiences. So how can we do more with all of our partner teams, the rest of the Microsoft family to make this something that is baked into our products rather than trying to jam it in later? So 3D is going to be a theme you see across Microsoft products for a very long time, as will AI.
So great. So in other words, like a lot of this stuff is also just based on what you're saying before with hardware technology as it comes online and available, allows you guys to sort of think about Windows 10 and how you can best leverage that. So you guys are still thinking out. So literally, you guys are thinking out years from now where Windows 10 is going to be.
That's right. And we're figuring out what the future Windows is, right?
Sure.
Because we believe that people are always going to use computing to run their lives and their jobs. That's not going anywhere, right? We're not going back to the days of the chisel and the tablet. Like, that's probably not going to happen. But how can we make that easier for people? Because we've always been about empowering every person and every organization, right? And it sounds really, really cheesy, and people think I am just ridiculous. But every morning we swipe in, and it says so on the badge. It says so every single day. So we take that really seriously. We actually bust that out in meetings. Right? When we feel like someone's not doing the right thing for a specific audience, I will bust out my badge in meetings. I'm like, it says every. They're like, okay, fine, every. Every is a thing, right?
Yeah.
But we've seen so many people do it. Like Satya does it all the time. He says it all the time. We all say it all the time. And it's really just proliferated into our culture where we are building products for the globe. Windows is not for the 1%. So we have to think about how people do business, whether it's in Kenya or whether it's in New York City, and understand like what does that business look like and what is the technology we need to build to make that business easier. Whether it's things like, hey, we need to run more offline, right, in areas that are occasionally connected, or whether it's, hey, we need to get like more hardcore on AI just for the busyness of this lifestyle. So we have to far, far, far in the future. And with some of the superpowers that we know we have is, first of all, our customer base is very global and very, very, very diverse. That is a very strong superpower. That's not something that most people in the world can say. Another one is our knowledge of the kinds of things that people do, right, with jobs and businesses is pretty good. We have customers in every single segment. Right? Whether it's aeronautics or hotels or whatever, we have people in every single segment, and those folks are willing to like work with us to actually build the technology for their lives and their jobs. They're willing to co-create with us. We have insiders in every country in the world. That's powerful, right? There are not many products out there that can say, yeah, we have customers in every country. And for us, it's not just every country. Insiders actually.
Hey, Donna, your audio seems to be messing up slightly again. I'm not sure what's causing it.
It's probably like my yakking. Okay.
Okay, there it goes. Yeah, it's
the camera angle was not great there. There we go.
How's that?
That's better.
Okay. I'll yell.
Yeah.
Yeah, these microphones having problems picking up. It's okay.
Donna, could you like angle the camera up a little bit? Because we'll see half your face right now. Perfect. There we go. Thank you.
Is that good? Okay.
You need AI for smart cameras.
Yeah. Sorry, where were you? Sorry for interrupting.
No, I was saying some of the superpowers we have is our community, right? Our global community of customers, partners, our OEMs, our IHVs. There are billions of people out there that we work with. And that's saying something, right? There are 7.4 billion people out there. Our products serve 2 billion of them. That's a lot of people, right? That's a lot of people that we already know, but that means there's 5.5 billion people we don't know. So that's just greenfield for us to go after and figure out how we can serve them best with technology. So you guys will notice I get on planes a lot.
Yeah.
I learn about people different than me.
Sure.
So I have, Australia, New Zealand, parts of Africa, South America. I get on planes a lot because I can't assume that I understand how business or technology works anywhere in the world except for Seattle, Washington.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's always been a big problem, I would say, with tech in general, is it's been very, not only just West Coast oriented, but just United States oriented. And that's sort of something we face, as our site is almost 2/3 non-US. And so we're always sort of facing this issue of, how to best talk to those markets. Not everybody can afford $4,000 laptops, and so the question is just like how to, best address that. I do want to turn a little bit to mobile. So, with Windows 10 Mobile and the Creators Update, I noticed a lot of sort of under the hood improvements. It's a lot faster and zippier and just feels better to use. And I do, despite the current situation with mobile, it is way better than it was 6 months ago, and you guys are making progress there. But as far as features go in the Creators Update, it doesn't seem as much linked to the PC experience with pen and inking and everything like that. And I'm just curious about how do you balance that, and maybe why there weren't as many features. Like, there's this thing with One Core, you guys build the OS, it's, technically the same OS, but obviously there's some mismatch. Like there is the color picker in the Windows 10 mobile version for accents versus the PC. And I'm curious as to why do things like that happen, and, what could customers expect from that?
So let's talk about what mobile means.
Yeah.
One thing that I realized is that people think about mobile as being this, right? As being like this thing that they carry around in their pocket. And I love my 950 XL. Like, it is a lovely device. Camera's fabulous. But that is not the only mobile device on the planet. A HoloLens is a mobile device. An IoT thing is a mobile device. There are going to be new device categories in the future that will also be mobile devices. It will be about things you carry with you anywhere you go, right? And as humans, it is actually very, very unnatural for us to stare at a screen. This is not normal. This is not human behavior. This has only been around like 10 years. And for us to always be like this is weird, right? It makes us antisocial. It makes us not behave like the way humans do. Also, designing for a screen is kind of ridiculous because you're thinking, oh, what's going to look good on a screen? There's only so many ways to navigate. You swipe, tap, zoom. These aren't human gestures.
Right.
They're not. And moving forward, when you think about the world that we are going to live in, we're not going to live behind a screen, right? To say we're going to live a life behind a screen, that's not even very human. That's not normal. It's very unnatural. Instead, we have to think about what technology looks like when it gets out from behind the screen and out into the real world. It is incredibly important that people grow skills where they can build and use technology that is not behind a screen. So one example I'll give you, when students study design right now, they think about how to design mobile apps. Just like, stop thinking about this, because in the future, you're not going to have screens here with flat mobile apps following you down the hallway. That's weird, right? That's very, very odd. Same with IoT. We firmly believe in devices that have cellular capability with ARM processors. We are firm believers in that device. That device may not necessarily be the thing that you have on in your pocket right now.
Gotcha.
We are investing in not just next year, but the future of what mobile device means.
And that's a very difficult thing, but you guys have been so far, I would argue, pretty successful when it comes to, like, say, Surface, where you guys, like, the desktop was written off years ago, and now I'm actually speaking to you on a Surface Studio.
Yes.
And it's one of those devices where, I'm not even an artist. Like, I'm terrible at drawing, but it's one of those devices where even people like me and regular people want it, right? And so but it's a tough thing for you guys to do, right? I mean, because so far you've been successful, but it's a big risk to be able to say we think we know what's coming next, where this is all going.
Yeah, but you have to, because otherwise you're just keeping up, right? And that doesn't feel right. We've never done it. To us, the modern Microsoft, it doesn't feel right to go chase a paradigm from 2002, right? That doesn't make any sense. Instead, we're like, let's go invent new device categories that'll help people interact with the world in the way they choose to, not in the way that, some design principles from behind a screen dictate us to. One of my most favorite part of working on holograms was there's no design principles. People ask me all the time, they're like, what are some design principles? I said, don't use giant letters to float in space. I don't know, right? Other than that, you tell us, right? We have to try things and see what feels right. So design principles emerged. We're like, don't put holograms closer than here. People like personal space. Don't put sound, like if you're creating a bird, don't make it be on the ground. People aren't expecting birds to be on the ground. They expect birds to be in the sky. So basic design principles emerged, but only after we built for it. And the same thing with IoT, right? If your refrigerator starts talking to you, that's going to be weird because refrigerators probably shouldn't be talking to you, right? So there's a whole bunch of like human-centric things that we need to ramp up on as an organization, but also as people who want to work in technology. A lot of people ask me like, Donna, I really want to work in tech. And I'm like, oh my God, I love hearing this. This makes me really happy because everything is going to be tech. It's not like, hey, I want to work in tech, so I want to work at Microsoft, Google, Facebook, whatever. No, you can work at GE, Delta, Ford, hospitals, wherever, and work in tech because none of these industries are going to be digitally transforming without technology, right? They would have done it by now. You're just not going to do that. So when we think about this, we realize that we've got an amazing group of people that we can actually start to like help with the learning, right? We've got a community, millions of insiders, and so many of them have written me. I get emails and pings all the time saying, I want to work in tech. I said, you know what? We can actually do something about this. We can, first of all, we have a lot of companies who like people who know a lot about Windows technology, right? Our entire WIP for Business program, 40% of the Insiders program are IT pros. They're always looking for talent to come to their companies and help deploy Windows and run Windows and whatnot. We can actually put insiders together, right? My counterpart, Jeremiah Marble, who you guys know very well, is actually working on an algorithm to match insiders based on need. Like, I'm hiring, I want a job, or I need an artist, I'm a developer. How can we actually foster these matches between people? And through the power of LinkedIn, like, we think we can actually do this pretty easily. But this is a concept we want to test and prove out in the next few months. And the other thing is, it's such a good way to actually train up the next generation of technologists on the skills that they're going to need. One very basic one is designing for humans and the real world we live in. Another basic one is the ability to create really rich content, whether that's like you with blogs and podcasts and such, or whether that's showcasing their work through something that can be consumed by people to prove their value, right? In the future, a resume, a flat thing written on a sheet of paper is not going to be a thing. Your resume will be the body of work that you can point to through like some portfolio of content that you have based on what you're trying to do, right? So I want our insiders to lead because, hey, these are millions of people raised their hand and said, I believe in tech, I believe in the future, I actually want to do more with technology. They didn't have to do that. So I believe that these are the people who are going to lead in digital transformation globally. So that's why I keep harping on the fact that I'm like, let's improve our skills. Let's think about the future. Let's not think about the past, right? Don't fixate on the past. Let's think about the future. 'Cause we're going to live a long, long, long damn time. So let's actually like plan for that future.
So I don't want to keep you too long because I know we want to wrap this up pretty soon here, but quickly, what do you think is one of the big misunderstandings currently that Microsoft is trying to do with Windows 10 that you maybe would like to, get out there that maybe the media ourselves aren't picking up on, or that consumers may not fully grasp? You've talked a lot about it here already with, the future and the future without screens kind of thing. But is there anything else like that maybe people are sort of missing with what you guys are doing with Windows 10?
Actually, you know what? I feel like the media have been really, really amazing in the last few months, 6 months. You guys have done a really good job telling the story that we are trying to tell, right? The coverage across Creators Update has been phenomenal. Like, it's been phenomenal. As the rollout happens, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I hope it goes well. We're like, it's going really well. It's going incredibly well. The feedback from everyone who's installed it, who's, a normal, as Mary Jo calls it, is really good. People are like, oh, I like these. These are interesting features. I have new colors. I have new things. I have new this. I have new that. I can, choose my update time. I can choose my privacy. And what's been amazing is people just stick to defaults because they're like, that looks okay. So after all talk, right, people tend to stick to defaults.
Sure.
There's a group of people who really like to customize things, but in general, people are like, let me get used to the defaults and then I'll start to customize and whatnot. But I don't feel like there have been any like horrendous, huge misunderstandings lately. I just hope that the global audience understands that digital transformation is just starting.
Sure.
We're not at the end. We're not like reaching, critical mass. We're not at that point. Like digital transformation, the way it happens is first it happens a little bit, then it happens all at once, really fast, right? It was like, PCs. It was mainframes. It was a thing that 4 people had in their house. Then everyone has one.
Right.
Within like 2 years, everyone's got one. Same with phones, right? At first, like 4 people had those Nokia flip phones. Then everyone. So it's just how things happen. So I want people to be prepared that technology, it's coming. Right? The future is coming, and the best way to prepare for it is not to be afraid of it and not to be afraid of like, I'm going to get automated out of my job, but to realize that we just have to get smarter and we have to become more aware that our humanity is the thing that cannot be replaced. And let's use that superpower to actually lead in digital transformation.
Nice.
So I'm curious, what can we do more as insiders to help the Insider program and, well, you guys at Microsoft?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that would be really helpful is that when you encounter, all of you have communities, whether they're your parents, your schools, your whatever. If people have Windows 10 and they would like to update to Creators Update, help them through that process. But what I would love to know is what questions they have. Because one thing I've learned about normals, not insiders, is they don't generally give feedback. So I'll give you an example. Like I'm a fan of like Zico coconut water, right? I drink this stuff all day, but I'm not going to join like the Zico Insider program. I'm not going to try and first. I'm not going to send them feedback. It's just not something I'm like that much of a fan of. Like, oh yeah, I can drink this stuff, but I'm much more likely to have a question. Like, what's the place I can get them in bulk, or why does the carton look like that? So I'm not giving feedback because I don't deem to know enough to give feedback on it. But I have questions about it. So as you're helping people update or upgrade, actually, let us know what questions they have, right? Because that means that that's opportunity for us to build a better operating system for a global audience. So that's something that insiders can definitely help with.
Nice.
Another team, the Edge team, asks is when you go help people update or upgrade, or whether it's on your own machine, try out websites that your parents tend to go to, right? Just older people tend to go to, because we tend to go to the same, 20 websites. I mean, we nerds, we do.
Right.
Tech enthusiasts.
Right.
But what do not tech enthusiasts actually go to? And let's see how they work on Edge. And if they're not working well, let us know, because those are things that we know we want to go out and fix.
Very nice. So I just had one related question to that. When we do give feedback, sometimes we can just do stars and then we can write it in a little box,
Yeah.
some text. Does it matter? I mean, if we just leave stars, is that okay too? That's still
Yeah.
valuable? Okay.
Yeah, it is really valuable because that's like the equivalent of an upvote.
Yeah.
And those actually tend to trend, right? We have these like fairly complex algorithms to look at feedback across the board, and we make it easy for owners of areas to look at feedback. So if someone's looking at, hey, feedback on, like the little Swift pop-ups that happen, like, was this useful to you?
Right.
Respond, because the Edge team is like, looks at that all day long, right?
Interesting.
And the Edge community champ looks at like, okay, this is just trending 5 stars over here, bad over here. So they're very much like focused on the feedback for their area. That's how we are able to manage our feedback, is by community champs. We have a lot per area. One thing we do want to do this year is make them a little more visible. A lot of them are pretty shy because, we're engineers. Everyone tends to be a bit of an introvert. They're like, oh, no one wants to hear from me. We're like, they want to hear from you.
Oh, yeah.
So we actually want to publicize them on our website. Speaking of, we're going to have brand new insider website, brand new insider forums, sub-communities starting June. We're actively working on those. Big engineering project. Brandon LeBlanc, actually, who you all know, is leading that project in Taiwan.
Excellent.
So we're going to have those unveiling like sometime June, July-ish. We need to run through our management. They have no idea. They don't even know. So it's going to be a fun surprise. But as part of that, we want to have like a Meet the Champs page. So you guys can see, like, of course, me, Brandon, Jason, Jeremiah, and Jen, but there's a lot of other people who actually do a lot of support and such behind the scenes, like the flight ops crew, or all of the other champions, or some of the people who work on the partner teams that you guys may want to get to as well. So we want to profile them. That way you can ping them on the social media channel of their choice.
Excellent. Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest things you guys have done as a company is put a human face on the people behind it. It really changes just the way people, I hope, would interact with the company, as opposed to knowing that there are these like real people who are answering your questions. I think it's really changed the dynamic for things, and definitely excited about hearing the forums and the continued growth of it. And just slightly related to that, I know Xbox is being folded, some of the insider program stuff, into the larger program. And can we expect a little bit more of like the feedback hub with Xbox related content too? Or is that just a...
So far, we actually haven't gotten a lot of feedback that people want that.
Okay.
Because Xbox has had a long running fan program forever. Sure. Xbox has actually been role models for how we deal with our Twitter.
Yeah.
Xbox's tweet fleet is like legendary, right? They win like in records. They're quite legendary, and they're like the most disciplined people we've ever seen. So we try to operate like them. We don't always succeed because it's just not something we've done.
Yeah.
So we keep learning from Xbox how they look at feedback and whatnot. And right now, because Xbox is just a different form factor, it doesn't make much sense to submit feedback into Feedback Hub not from that form factor. But we're trying to figure out ways to kind of do more intersections where it makes sense. So one thing you will see is more intersections between Microsoft products where it makes sense. So we will, like, for example, for Whip for Business, if people are opting into Whip for Business and they're also Office Insiders, we're going to say like, hey, this is a good way for us to look at our feedback together so that we make sure we're providing you a good experience. So where the intersections make sense, we'll do them. And we're always looking for feedback from insiders on, here are the myriad products I use. I would love to be part of like multiple insider programs and have my feedback go to like a place. So that's the kind of feedback we love, because we're not just co-creating our products with you, but the program as well.
Nice. Excellent. Well, I think that'll wrap us up. I know we went over a little over time here with you, but we definitely appreciate we appreciate you joining us.
All day, but I have to go meet my upper management to talk about things.
It sounds great. Well, thank you for your time today. I know everybody definitely appreciates you guys being here. Yeah, definitely. All right, take care.
Bye. Keep hustling, team. Bye.
Bye.
Just add me up now. Hi, we're back. Actually, we're not back. Just a sec. Let me add my camera to the other thing. They can hear us though. Yeah, we're just quickly setting up the 2-person view as always, because we no longer have 3 people on the show.
I just saw me appear and then disappear.
Yeah. That'll be fine. And then you go there. And then you go there. Maybe. That'll do, whatever. Okay, we're back.
Let's do a reclap again just for the audio sync.
Oh, yeah. Go on then.
We'll mark the time 48 minutes.
46.
Oh, I got 48. Okay, let's count back. 3, 2, 1.
Okay. So we're gonna just finish off the podcast, I guess. We have a couple stories. We've got about 10 minutes, really, maybe a bit more than 10 minutes, where we can talk about a couple stories of this week. Should we dive into the announcement of the hardware event? Sure.
Although I just want to mention quickly, I thought it was really. I want to thank again Donna for joining us with that, and I thought some of her points were really interesting, especially talking about future technology and building Windows for a world without screens. I think our audience, if you guys have been reading this up we've been writing about, you probably made a lot of connections to things we've alluded to, whether it's HoloLens, holographic, mixed reality, Project Neon, and of course, talking about mobile not necessarily being a phone. And I think you saw, in that conversation there with her, just some messaging there that this is sort of what's going on. And, I know as someone who obviously writes and lives on this stuff, that to me that hit me on the head. It was sort of like very obvious messaging. And I'm hoping our audience tuned into that too as well. I know it's not necessarily the answers you want to hear, which is, can I just buy a new Lumia 960 tomorrow? But Microsoft is obviously in a very interesting situation with mobile, where they definitely are thinking about the future, but it's hard, I think, for consumers to be like, well, yeah, the future, like in 6 months, right? When that new phone comes out, as opposed to thinking about what mobile is going to be in a couple of years. And it really gets into this thing where I still talk to people who are like, we're always just going to have like phones in our hands. And to me, that's not too evident. Like I said, years ago, people thought smartphones were weird. Why would you want to email from your phone? You have a PC on your desk, But dynamics change in how we use technology. And, it's interesting to hear Microsoft planning for that future. I love watching The Expanse because the technology that they use in that show seems like it's totally based on real life stuff, like where this would actually be. And it's just fascinating to hear a company building for a technological future that's, years out, which is a smart decision, but it's also a hard choice, to make. And it leaves a lot of our people in our audience, at least, a little upset that they won't have that latest phone. So I just thought that was really some fascinating stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yes, thank you very much, Donna, for coming on. Also, make sure you follow her on Twitter. If you're not, I assume all of you are, since you're mostly Windows insiders, at Donna Sakar. Let's move into our, first actual story of the podcast, the Microsoft hardware event. Microsoft announced this week that on May 2nd, they will be holding some kind of spring event that will focus on education, which comes at an interesting time, a few hours after Joe Belfiore announced that he was back at Microsoft and working on making Windows 10 better for the education market. So we've been hearing about a hardware event for some time now. There were rumors that maybe a Surface Pro 5 would be there, or some kind of Surface Book 2 successor. We're hearing no, there will be no Surface Pro 5 or Surface Book 2 at the event, no Surface Studio refresh, that'd be way too soon, and definitely no Surface phone. I know many people were hoping for something like that. No, this event is going to be, I guess, either a new device or a successor to the Surface 3. This is a device that is supposedly aimed at taking on Chromebooks and compete in the education market. So we're expecting sort of maybe a slightly cheaper, maybe clamshell laptop. We're not sure, maybe a 360 degrees laptop, not a detachable. Or it could just be a normal tablet like the Surface 3 was, which has an attachable keyboard and whatnot. But it's very interesting. May 2nd, a week before the Build 2017 event on May 10th. I just wonder why they didn't hold it, there.
Well, I think it's about messaging, right? I mean, we kind of mentioned how Build is, our audience is very interested in build because there are so many bits that will come out. There'll be both the keynote where there'll be the big news, but then Zach and I will be knee deep into the actual developer conference where they announce stuff, and there we'll figure out lots of little things. But for major, consumer and just general audience people, I don't think build is going to be. It's very esoteric in some ways, and also distant. It's things that are announced that developers will be able to create in 6 months. So I'm very excited about May 2nd. I think this is a really interesting. And what I really like about this is we don't know what's coming, 100%. We have general ideas, which you just heard Zach, basically talk about. But I love the idea that so far, fingers crossed, I'm going to be sitting in an audience on May 2nd. Satya and Nadella will be there too. And they're going to announce this thing and fill in, connect the dots. And we don't know. And I love that idea that even I will be surprised about what comes. And yeah, I think this idea of like a clamshell, some sort of, there's rumors that could this be the return of Surface Mini now that it makes a little bit more sense, right? A smaller device for students, and you combine it with the Creators Update and this idea of Windows 10 Cloud. It's like, you can start to see those pieces start to come together. And now they have a theme behind all this with both the Creators Update and the education thing. Maybe a Surface Mini device kind of makes more sense. If not Surface Mini, just call it Surface 4 or whatever. It's going to be really interesting both on the pricing, how they position this, its actual form factor, and we really don't have too much news. Now, Zach and I were speculating that some of that information I supposedly leaked out, what was it, DigiTimes, talking about a Surface Book 2, but it didn't attach. And that was always weird to us. So now I'm starting to think maybe that thing they're referring to is what this device is. It's not that it doesn't detach, but instead it rotates around 360, which makes more sense for students where you don't want things that break easily. I don't know. I'm very excited about this, especially, and you pointed out, Zach, that with Windows 10 Cloud, even there, you can still go through the store actually and basically upgrade this to Home or Pro and make it like a sort of a full version of Windows, right?
Right, yeah. So if you are interested in this new Surface, whatever it may be, but you're not too keen on Windows 10 Cloud, as if you don't know, Windows 10 Cloud is the upcoming version of Windows 10 that's locked to the Windows Store, meaning you can't download apps from outside the store. So if Google Chrome isn't in the store, you can't run it on Windows Cloud. But if you do want the Surface Cloud Book, or whatever they're going to call it, but you don't want to deal with the limitations of the Windows Store, you can buy the Surface Cloud Book. Then once you have it, you can buy Windows 10 Home or Pro Key and upgrade it to the normal editions of Windows 10, which will allow you to run programs from outside the store. I'm pretty excited as well. Since we don't know much, I like being surprised at hardware announcements. It's like the Surface Book announcement when that first was a thing. We knew that there was a bigger Surface coming. We didn't know what it was. Turns out it was a laptop. Then it turns out it could detach. It was amazing. Hopefully we have a similar experience with this. And it's pretty interesting as well to see Microsoft tackling Chromebooks so sort of viciously now. There's a whole new version of Windows for it. There's now new hardware. Although I was expecting Microsoft to at least wait till Windows 10 on ARM was ready before doing this.
Right, and so I guess that's where this gets into the mushy area. We don't know anything about this device, what it's powered by, the battery life, the pricing, how it's going to differentiate from a proper Surface. Is it even going to have Surface branding? I don't know. There's a lot of stuff here we just don't know about. If it's presumably in the same family as Surface, though, one thing I do know is they tend to create products that even when you don't need it, you still want it. And so, as I argued earlier before, Surface Studio, I'm sure many people in our audience technically don't have a need for it, but if I were to offer them a Surface Studio, they would gladly take it. And so I have a feeling whatever this comes out, it's going to be something you're going to want. And I think, having the ability to upgrade it to like a home version, even if you still want to install Windows 32 apps, will be a neat option, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who want to do that. But yeah, the processor thing. I don't know. Could they surprise us? Could this actually be running Snapdragon 835? Technically, they're about to hit the market.
Yeah, I mean, I had heard that the Windows 10 on ARM stuff wouldn't be ready until version 3. Maybe they were able to bring that forward. I have no idea. But yeah, other things at the event that we're expecting. We're expecting Windows 10 Cloud announcement, obviously, since this is rumored to run Windows 10 Cloud. Possibly Office 2016 Centennial Apps announcement, because we've known for some time now that Microsoft were testing Centennial versions of its full Office apps in the Windows Store, including Word 2016, PowerPoint, Excel, Access, and there's a publisher, I think it was. All of them are being tested internally on the Windows Store, and since Windows 10 Cloud can't run programs from outside the store, it would make sense to bring those most powerful Office apps to the Windows Store for students to be able to take advantage of them on a Windows Cloud machine. And hopefully we might even see Joe Belfiore at the event, since he is said to be heading the education
stuff. It would make sense. I guess it also calls into question the earlier rumors that he was set to monetize things in the start menu.
Yeah, I believe he's still working on the Shell team, and I think because I remember the Mashable article where he was interviewed. He does say his job hasn't really changed from before. He's still on the Shell team, but now he's also doing the education stuff, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a smart angle for them. They seem to be waiting now, until they're ready for certain categories to enter in. And whereas before full Windows 10 on laptops were a tough sell. By the way, I have a funny, quick anecdote. I was hanging out with a 9-year-old recently, which sounds a little weird, but it was a family member. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. And when I showed him my ThinkPad, the X1 Carbon, which I recently reviewed, he's like, "Oh, that looks like a Chromebook I use." I'm like, "Wrong, little child, that looks like a laptop. Your Chromebook looks like a PC." And he's like, "No, that looks like a Chromebook." And I was just like, and I thought it was a very instructive moment because, he's 9. He's very familiar with, PCs, obviously, but in fact, he knows Discord and Slack, and it's bizarre. I have more in common with a 9-year-old than I do people my own age who are into tech. They start very young. They get into Chromebooks, and this idea that what they're first exposed to and what they take home with them is going to set the path for the next, their lifetime. It's super important for Microsoft to be there with their own device that inspires kids. And I think there's a good argument that, and Donna was referring to this with creativity and this idea that we start very young, but then we kind of grow out of it just to, because of our lifestyles. But to be able to harness that, and you think of things like Minecraft on this thing, along with pen and inking and 3D imaging, like there's a huge opportunity there. So this could be pretty huge. I'm not sure that people necessarily, fully understood yet. I'm sure on May 2nd, they will figure a lot more of this out. But I think it's, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think as well, a lot of people, when the Windows 10 on ARM announcement was done, and we wrote up a few editorial sort of things, how this is going to take on Chromebooks and stuff, and all the comments were like, Chromebooks aren't a threat. Chromebooks are dumb. Yeah, maybe to you, but Chromebooks are taking on the education market by force. People are buying Chromebooks. They are popular. I mean, they may not be as popular as, say, Windows, but that's just today. What about in the future? Google are onto something with the Chromebooks, and it does make sense for Microsoft to be tackling them with all of their might. Because remember last time with some smartphone stuff where Apple's like, "Oh, here's an iPhone," and Android came out of all this weird stuff, and Microsoft were like, that's stupid.
If you really want to go back to it, go back to, I believe it was the November event where they announced Surface Studio, and Panos Panay was on stage, and he was talking about one of his son, and he used a photo of his son with a Surface Book folded back, drawing and doing his math homework on and through OneNote on this thing, and talking about how his children are so involved with this technology. And what was cool about that, it was just like, wow, kids make this cerebral connection with drawing and inking that necessarily some of us who grew out of that don't. But then it raises the question, like, so do I have to go buy my kid a $3,000 Surface Book? I think what they announced on May 2nd, it's going to go like, no, you don't have to buy them that one. You can buy them this thing. And I think that's the angle that's going to have. I think a lot of that was foreshadowing. I think that's what inspired a lot of them. So I think we can all start to kind of connect the dots here. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, so it should be very interesting next few weeks, because it will have the event, then we'll have Build, which hopefully we'll see Microsoft talk about the next version of Windows 10 at Build. Yes. All exciting stuff for insiders and Microsoft fans. Now, let's move on to, I guess, our last story. I know, only 2 stories, but this is a long podcast. Today, even, I published an exclusive, I guess, on a new feature that Microsoft are working on internally called Tabbed Shell. Now, a lot of insiders for a long time have been requesting Tabbed File Explorer, which is essentially picture Edge with the tabs at the top, put those tabs on the top of File Explorer. That's basically what people have been asking for. Now, not everybody agrees that this is a great idea. I know it's like the Marmite question. Tabs on File Explorer, some people agree, some people disagree. Regardless, Microsoft are exploring bringing tabs to not only File Explorer, but every app on Windows 10, whether it be a Win32 app, a UWP app, a Centennial app, whatever. Microsoft are experimenting with, I guess, sort of a feature or framework, whatever you'd want to call it, that apps just work with tabs. If you can run multiple instances of a program, it will run in a tabbed mode if you so wish. So if you check on the Windows Central website, we've got some mock-ups. Out of the box, all apps support it, but developers can tap into some APIs that sort of enable extra functionality and customization, such as custom new tab pages, colored title bars, tab bars, moving the title bar out of the window and into the tab, much like you would expect. Whereas unoptimized Windows using the tabbed shell will just have like 2 window controls, because it's basically the tab UI is housing the actual program within it. So you'd see on File Explorer, for example, two X's to exit out the window, unless of course Microsoft decide to optimize File Explorer for tab shell, which I'm sure they would. So this is very exciting. This is sort of Microsoft at least experimenting internally with bringing this feature to the public. Now, we're told it will be, it's not really nailed down. Redstone 3 could be a possibility, or Redstone 4 in 2018. So it could be pretty far out. Might be here sooner than we think. They might even show it off at Build if we're lucky, because I'm told internally the code's actually coming along. I believe the functions are there. I'm not entirely sure about everything, but yeah, the tab shell stuff is pretty interesting. And for those of you who have been waiting for things like tabbed File Explorer, this is basically what you're excited about.
How did you not use the exhibit mean with the, yo bro, I heard you like Windows, so we decided to put Windows in your Windows? Because that seems like a logical sort of step. But yeah, I agree. This is something I've heard from people wanting for a long time, and I think it makes a lot of sense, because one thing Windows has always been very good at is managing multiple instances of apps. And whether it's looking at Snap and how that works, or the cascading menu, that's been replaced now with the task view. This is something that Microsoft's always excelled at and made people's lives easier. I use Snap Mode all the time. It's one of my favorite things when you're working between 2 documents. And now we see Apple, mimicking this stuff pretty hardcore. So I think this idea of having multiple instances within an app, I think, is brilliant. Really, really smart. I hope we do see that come. I don't think this will be Axe. It seems like one of those logical progressions of Windows.
Right.
Not quite the live tile update I'd love to see, but still, this is one of those things where it just clicks, right? People see that, they're like, oh, that would be awesome. And that's an easy sell for Microsoft. They could just be like, oh, now you can do this, and people would understand it.
Actually, I said that was the last story. I think we should talk about one more thing. The new Insider Preview builds today. Microsoft
Let's talk about, you want to talk about their I don't say disinformation, but
just oddness. That's what I want to talk about for a minute. Microsoft released 2 Insider Preview builds this week. Build 16.176 for desktops, which makes sense. Redstone 3 development, 16,000, that's where it's at. And they also released one for mobile at build 15.204. Now, Microsoft is playing this off as, oh yeah, this is totally fine. This is normal. We're just pulling the mobile numbers away from the desktop ones and just focusing on it somewhere down this path. Whilst everything else going on, Redstone 3 and all the awesome stuff's over here, we're working on features on this path for mobile. So they announced that they are, from now on, the Windows 10 Mobile Insider Preview builds will be coming from a branch called Feature 2, which is an interesting name. No idea why they chose Feature 2. And also, the builds would be a lot lower than the ones on desktop and HoloLens, if they bring them to HoloLens and Xbox and whatnot. Now,
yeah, in fairness, HoloLens is still behind.
Right. Now, this doesn't mean that there's, there's going to be loads of feature differences between them. The numbers don't technically mean anything. It's the precedent. It's like, this is one core. This is one Windows. Why are you taking us down a different path from mobile at this point? And there have been rumors for some time now that mobile will die after Redstone 3. Maybe we won't even get to Redstone 3 at this point when it comes to Windows 10 Mobile. Now, Microsoft just says, oh yeah, we're going to be working on improvements and features for our Windows 10 Mobile enterprise customers. That could just mean under the hood stuff that we really don't know what's going on with mobile right now. It's all very odd and mysterious right now. And Microsoft are playing this off as it's like, yeah, don't worry about it. we got this.
We're unifying the platform by
splitting them up.
Mobile.
So it's like, because previously we had build 10240, 10586, 14393 were all RTM, air quotes RTM, for both mobile and desktop and HoloLens, if HoloLens was about, and Xbox and so on and so forth. Now all of a sudden mobile doesn't get to share the same build numbers. That's odd. That's very odd. Because what does this mean? Does this mean, like, down the line the build numbers will jump back up to PC, or will they remain at this lower level for the remainder of development?
Or is this new path a dead end?
Right. Is it a new path off the edge of a cliff? That's what I'm thinking.
Right. Although we should be a little bit cautious here too, that, you know, this may be just one side of the story, and we've been talking about this for a while now, you know, and I do love this wording, but I can't say it's definitive that Windows 10 Mobile is dying, but Windows 10 on mobile is not. And I think it's a clever wordplay, but I think there's a lot of truth to that. You know, when you look at, you know, putting Windows 10 on ARM, and Donna was just on here earlier, just, you know, saying, no, we're committed to ARM and cellular. You know, we see a future for this thing. It's just, you know, so there is this conceptual thing you got to wrap your head around, but we could be seeing the end here of the actual phones.
Because it's like, now they've done this build change and branch change and stuff. I mean, they could jump back if they wanted to, but now it's here. What happens after Redstone 3 is done and Windows 10 Mobile's Feature 2 release is done? Because that's what the branch is called, Feature 2. Again, what does that mean? It's just a name, apparently. They just chose Feature 2 at random or something. That's probably not true. Feature 2 means something. Maybe it's like Feature 2, air quotes. It's still Redstone 2. We're not doing anything with it.
Too Fast, Too Furious.
Feature 2, Furious 2. It's ridiculous. I'm not happy.
Yeah, this is, like I said, you know, we've been obviously talking a lot about mobile a lot lately, and, you know, what's happening with it. And there's a lot of questions. You know, we did see HP, you know, early at CES tease basically a new Elite X3. They were very coy about it, but when I talked to HP, it was definitely a wink and a nod, you know, like, hey, you know, that wasn't an accident that we show that thing. And so there's a lot of questions around that. Is that Snapdragon 835? Would that be running Windows 10 on ARM? But, you know, even your sources were saying that the Windows 10 on ARM on a phone thing is still seems, you know, more far out than expected.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done to desktop, first and foremost, before that can even be a thing. But yeah.
So I don't know. We also don't, you know, besides that supposed refresh, which we don't know the status of, right? I mean, there's a lot, you know, between CES and presumably in the fall, a lot can change. And now we're starting to, you know, we don't know. There are no phones coming out besides that one that we're aware of. And so, and whether that's even going to still happen. So this is definitely a precarious situation if you're into Windows Phone. But I don't know. It's weird times. It's weird and exciting times. It depends on how you're looking at it.
It's just ridiculous. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I know. I tell you what. I wonder if this also means that Redstone 2 for mobile isn't being released publicly. Because if they've jumped to 5204, it's not jumping to Redstone 3. I would say this is still a Redstone 2 build. Maybe I'm wrong in that regard. Or maybe I'm right and Microsoft would just say I'm wrong, which is also a possibility. But it's like maybe they're just going to not release the Redstone 2 stuff publicly and just wait till the end of the year and then release something definitive and then wash their hands and be like, we're out.
Right.
Who knows at this point? It's all speculation.
What was that special version of, was it Windows Phone 7 that they released for the devices that couldn't update? Wasn't that a thing?
No, I don't remember.
Windows
Phone 7.8.
Oh, 7.8, right.
Yeah, right. So it's like a sort of farewell update. Like, here's some of the stuff that the new Windows is getting. Right. You don't get it. But then I guess what could they do? I know, new tile sizes on the start screen.
Right.
There you go. There's your final farewell. Goodbye.
Okay, someone wants to talk about Wharton Brooks. This may be better for the question and answer period, but yeah, the Wharton Brooks phone, I wrote on that. I don't think it'll be funded. I don't think people should have to give money for that. If you don't know, this is a crowdsourced Windows phone that, in respect to Wharton Brooks, that's pretty awesome that they would do this. But if Microsoft won't, make or fund these phones, then I'm not sure why. It's up to the people. Having said that, I have right here in front of me the Mali W5, which is what it's based on. It's a cool phone. I like this phone as is. Updating specs with a modern processor and putting more RAM, it would be a really cool like messaging device just to have around. I kind of wish it would get funded, but I don't have high hopes for it. So I don't know. If Microsoft wants to do expand the solid, they literally have $113 billion offshore sitting there. They could spare $1 million and make it happen. But
Jason says 7.8 was the shell-like representation of Windows Phone 8. Maybe that means the last version of Windows 10 Mobile will be Seashell, because it's like, oh, here's the representation of the new Windows, but it's the last update ever. Here's some Seashell magic. Goodbye. That would be nice. Bet that doesn't happen though.
Probably not, but there you go. I think that will wrap it up for this week. We don't want to go over too much, but we will be doing a question and answer period next for those of you who are listening to this live. If you are not listening to this live, then we appreciate you guys listening in. But remember, we do record this every Friday live at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time, and you can figure that out for your part of the world. We broadcast on Beam and YouTube, and you can participate in there with us. Don't forget also tune in Thursdays where we do the Microsoft Gaming Libations with me, Zach, and Jez, and we get to play some Xbox video games, give away codes for stuff, and just have a merry old time. This week we did play Bulletstorm, which was, I think, by all accounts, a huge success. We all were surprised about how much fun that game was. We don't know what we're doing next week, but pay attention to that. And don't forget, we will be at May 2nd, live New York City, covering the Microsoft events, followed by the next week at Build. We'll be there, and I'll be joined by Zach. And then, of course, E3, I'll be joined by Jez for the Microsoft Xbox Scorpio stuff. So busy next 6 weeks. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Beam. Follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, R-U-B as in boy, I-N-O. Follow Zach at Zach, Z-A-C-B-O-W-D-E-N, and ask us questions. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We hope you appreciate that. And a special thanks to Donna Sakar from Microsoft for lending her time to us, and we hope you enjoyed that. Take care, everybody.
Oh, finally. That was the most... I had to do the most work that show, and I didn't even say much.
It's okay.
Goodness me, that was...
That's your job.
Yeah, I'm the producer of the podcast, so I'm supposed to do the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Will Zach be in New York City? No.
I didn't get an invite. Microsoft doesn't care about me.
It's the scheduling is weird. I know Tom Warren has this issue too, where he's got to fly from the UK to New York, then back to the UK, and then back to San Francisco. It's a lot of travel. It's just not enough time for that. But I'll be there. Mark Gwim, our videographer, will be there, and it should be enough to cover that one day. So yeah.
But I will be there at Build. Don't worry about it. Jason, I'm going to say hi to you.
Yeah.
Yes, so sorry about Donna's mic. Yeah, that was weird. It sounded like she had some sort of like sound minimizer on her microphone or something. Oh well, hopefully. Did you get her local recording?
Well, not yet, but I'll
make sure you follow up with that.
For sure. Well, I got to follow up with PR. Sure,
yeah. What did you guys think?
Stopped recording.
Yeah. Oh, she might have minimized it. Oh no.
I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, me too. All right. What did you guys think of the Last Jedi teaser? It's great. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I was going to ask Donna a question whether she saw it. I'm curious. I don't know if she's a Star Wars fan. I don't think she is, but yes, I thought it was pretty amazing. Pretty foreboding though. I love to think when Luke at the end there goes, "The Jedi must end," and then like the next scene is like, or maybe not. It's just a big tease, or Ray talks to him.
Or maybe the scene's not even in the movie.
Ray talks to him and is like, "Oh yeah, no, Ray, you're right. We shouldn't have the Jedi." It's just a big like teaser ploy. I thought it looked great. I'm a huge fan of the new trilogies. They look really, really exciting. So very good stuff. Someone mentioned they want my jacket, my Xbox jacket. It can be yours. I got through the eCompany store at Microsoft. Anyone can go there and order it. I don't think it's cheap. I think it's like $69, but totally worth it. It's very good quality. I actually love the way it feels. It just has, I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but you can go to the eCompany, just type in eCompany store Microsoft and get your wallet ready, because if you're a Microsoft fan, you're going to be like, I'll take one of those. They're really just cool stuff, but that's where I got it from. I just ordered it. So you guys can do that too.
We should have mentioned as well that Microsoft confirmed they dropped basically 90% of all the Windows phones that could run Windows 10 Mobile, quoting the fact that insiders complained a lot and it wasn't great. That's rubbish, in my opinion.
I agree too. One thing that was really nice about the creators update that I don't think a lot of people have necessarily, I keep mentioning it, but it does feel better in terms of performance and the way things work. Just the speed of it is a lot more quicker. I'm not saying it's done or perfect. I'm just saying they made progress. I would rather have the creators update on a phone than not have creators update on the phone. It runs very well in the Elite X3. It runs very well in the Alcatel. Actually, that reminds me. I should see if this Mali W5 got in on the Insider program. Probably not.
No, absolutely not. If it did, I will eat my Surface.
That's always your.
No, well, it was Tom Warren's thing first. I just like to copy it. Yeah. No, mine's eat my McLaren. That's it. Where's my McLaren? There it is.
Right.
My McLaren sits on my desk, so it reminds me every day that I have one.
Right.
Because I have one. I might use this as my phone when I go to build. That'd be fun. No,
I hope I can use a new Surface product at build.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Promotion for Microsoft. So Microsoft's usually pretty good. I have to say, I've been mentioning a story that every time there's a Surface event, except for Studio, actually, they've been really good about giving press their review units at that event, and I'm fingers crossed hoping it happens here. Now, Surface Studio made a little bit more sense because that box was huge, and it would have been weird. And they only had like 5 of them, which is why so many few outlets actually had reviews for them. We just bought ours, and I'm using it today. So there we go.
Now Dan's got 2. So
I got 2. It's true. They're going to go in my new house.
Patience is a virtue. Jason asks, do you have an idle device? You do, don't you, Dan?
Yes, I use the Alcatel. I have it right here. Yes, and it's running the. I actually really like the idle. I mean, it's if the battery died. I gotta put the SIM in there. Actually, what I was gonna say is, if you're really into Windows 10 Mobile and you're worried, this phone goes unlocked for $284 right now on Amazon, and it's just a really good phone. Now the camera it's okay. It's always gonna be that weak spot, but the rest of the phone I think is just really awesome. So
yeah, I wish that was available in the UK, but they ain't. And they probably won't be anymore.
So yeah, I'm kind of curious about that too, whether or not Alcatel, I don't know, they may be just being like, later guys, we're out of this too, because that was supposed to go on sale in Europe and UK, and I'm curious now because T-Mobile has basically discontinued support.
All right, any more questions? Put Android on the McLaren. Yeah. I need to put Windows 10 on it first. I haven't done that. I'm still too scared. So Jason's asking, try to install 15.204 on the idle. We might have a targeting change that is needed. Let me know if you get the update on it.
Oh, okay.
Dan's helping out. Dan is a real insider. Right. Questions. Any questions? If you're going to ask us about the future of Windows Mobile, we honestly don't know. Me and Dan and Jez have been trying to piece it together for so long. We've given up. We honestly have given up. If someone's like, oh, I got a mobile tip, we just throw it in the trash.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this gets a lot of it into the language thing. I think Donna, pointed to that, what we think of mobile today. It's wordplay, but at the same time, there's some... They had some hard truths, and I think they basically realized, this playing catch up to a category that's already mature seems self-defeating. And this is, getting to like the Surface phone, right? Say they released a phone tomorrow, right? What would all of you guys say? It's like they could release this amazing hardware, but they would still have this app problem. And I saw a really good, point recently that basically said, even if they released a phone, they're just figuring out the way to lose this race, right? They either lose by just folding up shop on this category for now, or they put out a new device and sink money into it and still lose, right? Because we know whatever device they were to release tomorrow, still would not compete with a Galaxy S8, would not compete with an iPhone 8. Or you could be the most hardcore Windows 10 mobile person, and you'd still acknowledge that truth. And as a company, you have to pick your battle. So this idea that, well, we're going to bet on the next big thing, I think is it's probably the right thing to do. It's just a hard pill to swallow if you're like me. I still like using Windows 10 phone, even though I have other devices. That's a tough pill to swallow, but I don't know.
Rowan asks, do we have any questions for the chat? Let's turn this around on the chat. Guys, what's the future of Windows 10 Mobile? Please tell us.
Yes.
When is the Surface Phone? Why did you misspell that one word in the title that one time?
Yeah, totally.
And then 5,000 comments pointing it out. Yeah, I get it.
If you have tips on Microsoft's mobile stuff, you can email me at daniel@windowscentral.com.
Or you
it's very easy.
DM me on Twitter. I prefer DMs.
Yes.
On Twitter.
You think Microsoft may do a major update to the kernel? As I haven't received a major update since Vista. Oh, kernels are
a whole thing.
Yeah, they are working. I think Mary Jo Foley was covering this for a while. A few years ago, they were working on a new type of kernel, but I don't know. I don't think no. I don't think, short answer is no. But the question is, does today's kernel not do something that they would really want to do? I don't know what, if someone had to go and list the flaws of the current kernel, what they are, so we don't know that. I haven't heard anything about that, but that's some real hardcore work that spans over a decade, from what I understand. The idea of swapping out kernels, I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but I'm sure they are working on sort of next gen versions of it, but that's way down the line.
Yeah, we should probably thank Jez for moderating the chats today. He's moderating 2 chats, and he's done a great job. Thank you very much, Jez. You are the best. Why do we cut the questions and answer part from the podcast? Because it's not very, professional. We have those pauses, we're waiting, we read out silly things sometimes. It's not really good for the show. If you don't, this is our special gift to those who can tune in live. If you can't tune in live, you don't get this. This is our one-on-one time with the Windows Central community.
Right.
If it doesn't work in your time zone, move time zone. I'm joking. Honestly, I can't help you if you live in a terrible time zone. Not a terrible time zone. A time zone in which it is inconvenient for you to tune in.
Well, it's even my Ask Dan stuff. You guys watch those videos and you're just... And by the way, I'll be filming one hopefully next week, but... there's actually a lot of editing work that goes into that. You kind of don't appreciate when you just watch it. You just click a video and you're like, oh, okay, Dan answered questions. But all those cuts and the B-rolls and the audio and getting me and putting up with my mistakes, because I don't use a teleprompter. I just literally just talk. It's a lot harder. And yeah, getting rid of awkward pauses and keeping the flow is you need an editor for that. So it's a little difficult to do it as a podcast.
Also, editing the podcast itself is also a whole nother game. Whereas
I'd also say,
I don't know if you noticed, sometimes Dan's audio is out of sync with his video. I don't know why. It's either Skype or the Surface Studio. It takes me hours in Premiere Pro to fix that. Hours. And sometimes I can't even fix it. I just give up.
I also say that Real Time with Bill Maher does the same thing, where they do overtime and they broadcast, I believe, on YouTube, and they do questions and stuff like that. It's just a thing we do. So sorry.
There's a vote going on in the Beam chat. Should Dan show the turtle?
I could.
97% say yes. I chose no.
Hold on. I think he's out. Hold on.
Look at you guys just making us do extra work.
So he's not where I thought he was.
Oh, that's not good.
Which raises all sorts of interesting questions. Where is he? Sorry. Maybe next time.
He's busy trying to solve the mystery of the Windows 10 Mobile.
Yes. The good news is, since looks like getting a house, going to invite my best friend over, and we'll probably dig him a little turtle pond. And he's going to be outside, and he'll have a little fence, and I'm going to build him a little hut, and Yes, Turtle's going to have his own little habitat.
You see, most people have cats, maybe a dog.
I got 2 cats.
Dan's got a turtle and 2 cats.
Yes.
Do they get on well, or do they not care about each other?
Because he's cold-blooded and like he's not vicious at all. Like he's still has never tried to bite me. When a cat approaches, he just shrivels up into his shell. And since he's cold, they don't really detect him as being even alive, so they just quickly move on. They think he's like some sort of, they don't know what he is, but they don't think he's like an animal. So, what's for drinks tonight? That's a good question. You know what? Jez recently tweeted about absinthe, and then I mocked him because he's like the generic, I've heard of absinthe that makes you hallucinate, and I'm just going to drink it on, he said he's going to drink it neat, and I nearly lost my shiz because I'm a hardcore absinthe person. And so I think I might go buy a bottle of absinthe because I haven't had it in a long time. But maybe I'll tweet out later this article that I shared with Zach and Jez about absinthe, and it's a whole thing. My favorite thing is I have a glass that's handmade in Spain. It's like one of those like blown glasses that's based off of a mold from like 1912 for absinthe, and it's a whole thing. I can do a podcast about it, but probably that.
Yeah, Dan and Jez had this conversation yesterday, and I just tuned out.
Yeah, Zach totally tuned out. It was funny. He went silent. He was like, I don't care.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm happy with my side.
I'm trying to make you guys sophisticated. I feel like I'm the parental figure, which is really
how is that sophistication?
Oh, because, well, if you go to a bar and you drink absinthe neat, you're an idiot.
I'm not going to a bar, and I'm never going to order that anyway.
Someday you may want to. You're British. Come on. You gotta do
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, if you order a martini, you better know how to order one. That's all I'm saying. Because if you ordered a martini as a British person, you screwed it up. People like Americans would just be like, "Don't you watch James Bond?"
Well, Patreon for Dan's absinthe.
Yes, my absinthe podcast. Sure, yeah, we can do that. It'd be a short. No, it wouldn't be a short podcast, but it'd be an infrequent one. I should do that though. Did we see dual booting of Android and Windows 10 Mobile?
No.
This is just an idea that, the only companies that seem to be interested in this are Chinese companies who like flouting rules and partners like Microsoft and stuff. At no point does Microsoft and Google want to be on the same device. Like they're just like, ew, God, no, pick one. Likewise, I know this idea has been floated out that Microsoft should or is going to release an Android phone. I think that's nonsense. I do think UWP will go to Android at some point. I think Microsoft has told me, bridges work both ways. I mean, I can't see how that's any more clear, this idea that you take something like Xamarin and you can write in UWP and put an app on Android. That could be a thing for, someday. The problem there, of course, is I would argue 90% of all apps have been written already in this world. We're already, and I've talked about this endlessly before, we're in a post-app world. The only people who don't know yet are consumers. They're still living in the app world. And that's fine. They'll live there for a few years. But, you heard Donna talk about AI and stuff. That is coming. It's, again, not coming 6 months from now, not coming a year from now, but in 5 years from now, that will be a thing. So we're in a post-app world. And so this idea of how do you, why build a UWP? Like, what do you want to do? Rewrite Instagram in UWP? Unless it's so better than whatever they're writing Instagram in today, I can't see that happening, which means I don't see a lot of this, no company, you're not going to see a bunch of UWP apps all of a sudden on Android because we already stick to major brands. I always bring this idea of what's the biggest app in the last year? People still say Snapchat or WhatsApp. Okay, well, those apps are written. And not only are they written, but they've been out for years already. So we're already in this point of stagnation where we're just iterating on an idea right now. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens at Build. I wouldn't be surprised if they announced something like strong as Xamarin tools for doing that.
Someone asked me, Zach, do you smoke because you're always coughing on the podcast? No,
Zach's just sick.
I'm just sick. I'm always sick. I've been sick since, I think, late March. I can't remember. I had a really bad illness, and this cough is just sort of the last bit of it, I guess.
He's like in a Dickens novel. He's just always,
I'll be better next week.
I'll be better. So can I have some porridge? He's got his little cane.
Your British accent's terrible.
I have lots of British accents. Do my Monty Python. Hello!
Oh my god! Now it's just getting offensive. You're now just offending all the
Yes.
Brits.
I hate technology. That's Jez's bomb, by the way. That's a joke between Zach.
I have not put the crates update on the service table yet, Leonard. I just haven't got around to it. I'm busy.
I bet it would run better.
Yeah. Or not at all. Who knows with Microsoft?
Yeah.
Try a Welsh accent. Yeah, you do a Welsh accent.
Ooh. Welsh is tough.
Welsh is very... Even I can't do a Welsh accent.
Yeah.
God, everyone's really impressed with your accent. I'm not. Why? Don't pretend to be impressed. You can criticize it. I'm very much going to criticize it. Windows 10 Mobile is the cure for my illness. Yeah. Ever since there's been rumors of Windows 10 Mobile dying, I've been constantly ill. So maybe there is a connection. If Microsoft kills Windows 10 Mobile and I dies, that should be written up.
I'll write that article.
Yeah, you need to write that and make the connection. And then you need to blame Microsoft for murdering me.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I'm getting back to that quickly. I'm like a lot of people in our audience. Like, if I have to give up Windows 10 Mobile,
right?
I'm not very happy.
It's a real question. We should write a thing. Like,
I do have, and I might as well announce this right now. I do have a LG G6 on the way. I didn't go with Samsung this time because I'm actually kind of tired of Samsung's gimmicky nonsense with Bixby. I just don't want. I want a phone that does phony stuff. I don't want to learn 9,000 new things. And the LG G6, that and the wide-angle lens really interested me. Now, having said that, I'm still not exactly excited about Android. And this is actually no different than anything I've ever done. I've always bought the latest Android device once a year just to keep abreast of things, but it doesn't mean I switch to Android. And I'm kind of expecting that here, too, where I don't really expect to switch to the G6 as my main phone, because I still have an aversion to Android, but we'll have to kind of see. But I don't know. I'm in that situation too. I'm not really happy with any choices out there. So HP, maybe they can save me.
Yeah. I mean, I've used iPhone. I'm using Android currently, with the intention to go back to Windows Phone, of course. But the only reason I'm doing it is so I can write that article as a Windows Phone user. If Microsoft kills the platform, where should you go? And I'm going to sort of compare the both, because I've used them both now, and I know what's best and what's not best. And I'd say it depends on who you are, which is always the answer. But, I hate Android. I hated Android. I've actually sort of started to warm to it a little bit with my use of the OnePlus 3. I would have hated it if it was a Samsung device or anything, because I hate the custom skins that they throw on it. The reason I like OnePlus is because basically it's stock Android, and stock Android is far better than bogged down customized Android.
Yeah. Two things. Someone asks, will I review the Surface Hub? Yeah. I've actually kind of broached the topic a little bit with Microsoft about maybe doing that. Maybe. Obviously, they're super expensive. There's also this question about what value they get out of it. Surface Hub seems to be selling pretty well on their own, and they're not a consumer product, so I'm not really sure what I can bring to it outside of just more exposure, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But when it comes to if I have to choose between that doing say like a laptop, the laptop makes a little bit more sense.
It might be a good idea to sort of do it at build, since we'll be at Microsoft practically anyway. Just put us in a room with it.
Yeah. You guys could, if you want to bug Microsoft, be like, hey, get Dan a Surface Hub so he can feature it. I've joked about putting one up behind me and using it like that. I don't know. We'll have to see. Someone talked about the argument about my apps thing is that no further. I'm saying that because he is asking for no further innovation. By that mindset, we stop writing altogether. I mean, not quite. I get what you're saying, but I'm not saying devs should give up writing apps. I'm just saying that the well is starting to run dry. This is sort of like fossil fuels, right? It's like we know they're still here. People are still using them. I'm still driving a car that runs on gas. But when we talk to the people who are drilling for oil, they're like, we're starting to see the end here. This stuff is getting really hard to find. It's getting real risky. I'm saying the same thing for apps. There will still be killer apps coming out here and there, but it's so much less than what it was years ago, where it seemed like every 2 months there was like this new fad app coming out. And then they started failing. And the biggest one for me was Peach. I remember Peach went from, it was announced to it was the top downloaded app on the iOS store that night. And it was just like people were going crazy. And then like a week or two later, it was just like no one was talking about it. Social networks, especially. Social networks are the bread and butter of all this app stuff. And it feels like we're getting pretty solidified in this stuff. Like right now you have, what's the new one? That begins with the M. I won't say Mammoth, but no.
No clue.
It's the Twitter competitor that's out there. So you don't even know.
Oh, yeah, Mastodon.
Mastodon,
something.
Yeah, who's also an awesome metal band.
I know things.
Yes. So the thing with Mastodon, though, is like as cool as it is, it's sort of like, is that really going to displace Twitter, which themselves really don't make money and have lots of problems? And it's like, probably not, because what's Mastodon? It's like, well, it's Twitter, but kind of better. It's like, well, but we got Twitter, It's like, and then becomes that tough sell, We saw it years ago with MySpace and Facebook displacing that, but is something going to displace Facebook? You get people locked into a service, and then it just becomes more of a hassle to switch them out. I feel like we're kind of getting there. Or look at how many chat apps added voice. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like we're just starting to hit this sort of wall of innovation, But don't give up on running apps. I'm just saying, start thinking about.
Give up. The future of technology is depressing. No, I'm kidding. Everything's going to be in your eyeball one day. I'm calling it. It's just going to be in your retina, and that's all that matters.
Well, I mean, this is where I feel like it's like, when I talk about The Expanse, and like when you watch futuristic movies, like they're not really launching apps, right?
No,
like,
it's just there.
It's just a computer that brings up knowledge. And so like that's kind of the better world, because like I said, apps are weird. You have to act on the app. You have to look at the app and go, oh, I want to go do that. You have to think about it. You have to go out and make it happen. Whereas in the future, we always envision computers doing the thinking for you, bringing things to your attention that you didn't necessarily think of. And so we all kind of agree that's sort of the world we want, but, someone's got to make that happen. So that's why I don't see in 15 years we have an app with, our phone rather, with 40 apps on it or 200 apps, I think there will still be apps, right? You're going to need like a word processor. You're going to need like a browser kind of thing. These sort of general apps, but you're not going to have like a 1-800-Flowers app. That to me, that's a perfect example. Or even my Five Guys. Like Five Guys has an app. I use it very frequently. But it's sort of like, why couldn't they tie into a general system that just takes orders? And you already see these in the US we have, and I know you guys have it too, these general food sites that just take your orders, right? I mean, what do you think if you run a mom and pop restaurant? Do you want to go pay a developer $50,000 to go make an app, or do you want to go through one of those fast food sites that will handle it for you? This is just common sense, I think. So
yeah. Even Microsoft internally, they've been toying with making Cortana an assistant that works for you rather than you programming it. Because right now, most of the interaction you have with Cortana is because you clicked on Cortana. Cortana doesn't work for you yet. And in the future, hopefully, it will. And that's when we'll really be at sort of like that level of futurism of computing and stuff.
Yeah, someone mentions every time I see an iOS home screen, which are endless grid of icons, I think it's so outdated. I agree. I have an iPhone. I do use it frequently on my second line. I never go to the second page. Like once in a while, I'll need that like Delta app or something like that. But like for the most part, it's just those icons on the main screen. And a lot of people have this where they just install tons of apps and they never use them. It's a problem. Companies are realizing this, by the way. New York Times has folded up a couple of their apps. A lot of companies are just not getting the return on value, and they'd rather do it a different way. What I'm saying is companies that make apps themselves are not in love with the idea of having an app. It's very expensive to maintain. And if they can do it a different way, they will,
Shall we sign off then?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's 4:15.
All right. Now, we had feedback that said, wait 15 seconds before signing off. So we're saying bye, and then I don't know, 15 seconds.
I'd also like to thank everybody for coming out. By the way, we still have a record amount of viewers today, still in this question and answer period. So thank all of you guys for coming out. Really means a lot to us. I think we're breaking records on Beam every week. So but very impressive. Make sure you join us for next Friday. We'll continue to try to deliver good content. And we're also going to have more guests. We're going to try to do this at least once a month, have someone from a different company or something like that. So if you work for a company and would like to be a guest, let me know. But I'm thinking someone from Razer and HP we may be getting.
Let's try and get some Windows engineers on at some point as well.
I would love to get some Windows engineers. This gets tricky with PR though, and
Well, don't tell them. It's easy.
Yeah, sure. We can get Jason on. We can have Jen on talking about socks and cute things.
Yeah.
But thank you guys for tuning in again, and make sure you check us next week.
Bye.